Where does confidence come from?
In my opinion, preparation gives confidence. When you're prepared mentally and physically, you should be confident. And if you know your playbook inside and out, you can run 100 miles an hour. You can go full speed. And when guys don't know what they're doing, generally they're not going full speed. And that's what, when problems happen or mistakes happen. So I think, in short, being prepared really enables you to be confident. And the more you prepare physically and mentally, the better, position you're going to be in.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Masters of the Game. This is Matt Phillips, and today I get to introduce you to the now CEO of Fathead, which we're going to dive into a little bit here in a bit, but Mr. Chris Hetherington. Chris, welcome to the show. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks, Matt. Great to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
It's so good. So if you haven't checked out the bio, please go check it out. But 11-year NFL veteran. You went to Yale University. You were an undrafted free agent, joined the Cincinnati Bengals, and then you played for multiple teams, the biggest one being the 49ers, but you played for the Colts, the Carolina Panthers, St. Louis Rams, Oakland Raiders, and then obviously you made your way to San Francisco. But you've experienced a lot. You've done a lot. First question I have for you is what is it like to play fullback in the NFL?
It was crazy. The fullback's a little bit of a dying breed right now. But my story is, I grew up in Connecticut, went to Yale, and originally played football and baseball at Yale. Yep. But in the Ivy League, when I was there, this ended soon after I left. But freshmen weren't eligible to play varsity, and so I walked onto campus with 90 other freshmen, and they recruited about 7 quarterbacks that year, and I came in as a tailback. Safety, essentially. And anyway, they ended up moving me to quarterback my rookie year. So I ended up playing quarterback. Never played quarterback in my life. Played quarterback for 4 years and came out as an athlete and had a bunch of teams look at me at running back, even defense, linebacker, safety, maybe an H tight end. Ended up going to Cincinnati my rookie year initially as an undrafted free agent. I tore my hamstring in my second pro day, which obviously hurt me a little bit. And but signed with Cincinnati. They showed me the most love before the draft and flew me out there a couple times. And Dave Shula was the coach, who was another Ivy League guy, son of Don Shula. And I missed all of preseason, came back luckily for training camp, and ended up getting put on the practice squad. I was there on the practice squad for about 8 weeks. And then week 8 of the season, Indianapolis's fullback got hurt, and so they picked me up. So yeah, to your point, I played 3 years in Indy, 3 in Carolina, 1 in St. Louis, 2 in Oakland, and 2 in San Fran. And look, I had never blocked anybody really in my life. Certainly, I haven't ISO blocked anybody. With linebackers at the time that were like 260. I mean, Levon Kirkland was probably 260 with incredible feet, and I just had to have a switch in identity and just become a tough guy and become a goon. And made a living on special teams first couple of years. It's kind of a kickoff kamikaze. I was in the wedge on kickoff return. And it's just a mentality, as you know, Matt. It's just doing what it takes to survive. And I knew that, if I wanted to make an impact, and certainly if I wanted to make the team, I'd have to become a really good special team player. And that's what I did. And then when I went to Carolina in 99, the Panthers ran a West Coast offense, and I was, more of an athletic fullback at the time, and played a lot of fullback, but still played all 4 special teams. And the fullback, as I said, is a dying breed. Not many teams use them, but the teams that have done well, at least in my opinion, over the last 10 years, have established a running game with a fullback. You look at New England, you look at Baltimore, San Fran, Kansas City even uses a fullback, and so. Hopefully it'll come back. It's a copycat league. But being a fullback, depending on where I was anywhere between 240 and 260. I was up to 260 when I was at the Raiders. And look, you're blocking D ends like Bruce Smith and Reggie White. The law of physics is not in your favor, so I had to beef up a little bit. But I enjoyed my time. I had an incredible experience. It was a grind, though. Every day was a grind. I felt as though my job was at risk every day, and I had to do what it took to survive and really prepare mentally and physically and outwork everybody. And was lucky enough to play 11 years and had a great experience. And then, the things that I've learned in my career, try to transfer those over to my business career.
Yes. Well, and did you have a dream early on that like you wanted to play a pro sport, like either baseball or football, or was it just kind of came, like, I don't know, just kind of naturally as you develop? But like, did you have that dream initially, or where were you at?
I'm saying this in a humble way. I was lucky enough to be a really good natural athlete, but I was the kid that worked at it. Like I just, after school, I was either shooting hoops or shooting hockey pucks into a net or playing catch with friends. I went to high school and my best sport was as a kid was hockey. Like I thought my future was in hockey.
Okay.
Ended up playing football and baseball and hockey in high school, and then ended up going to Yale and played football and baseball. And I thought I had a shot at baseball. I was a pretty good baseball player, and just kind of, I got hurt my junior year in baseball. I was decided to concentrate on football. And I would say, in reality, Ivy League football is not. Look, I think it's great quality football, but it's at the time wasn't a feeder system into the NFL, right? But today's world, if you're good, they find you anywhere with technology and all that. But I think the reality of me having an opportunity came, around my junior year at Yale, and my senior year, I had a good year. I had some injuries throughout my career,
Yes.
Basically a running back playing quarterback. I had a decent arm, but we ran a triple option my sophomore year. But
Yes.
it became a reality. Of course, every kid's dream is to become a professional athlete. I was lucky enough to be a good athlete, and then just worked at it, man, every day, just relentlessly, and got my opportunity. And the NFL, as you know, is a league of opportunity, right? And the saying is, the more you can do. Like I would have played long snapper, I would have played anything they asked me to do to survive in that league and be a good teammate and be accountable. And that's kind of how it happened.
Did you naturally have that work ethic, or is that something you had to like also work at to like have the work? It was just natural.
I think I had a natural good work ethic, but it's mental. You gotta wake up every day and you hear these voices in your head like, oh, hit snooze. Like I don't believe in snooze because I've trained myself early on. Like, look, I get up at 4:30 every day and I jump in the cold plunge and the sauna and I meditate and I work out. I get all my stuff done before my kids wake up for school. And that's not an option for me. Like, are there days I don't want to hop in that cold plunge? Yeah, probably every day I don't want to hop in
every day.
It's 40 degrees. Like, who wants to do that?
Exactly.
I know it's good for me, and I know it enables me to perform. Enables me to have a mental wellness and physical wellness, and that's what I've committed to. I still train like I'm a professional athlete because I think being a business person or an entrepreneur is just like an athlete. You have to dial in your mental and physical wellness, and I've just been committed to it. I think it's a lot to do with discipline. I'm a very disciplined guy, and I've always been a disciplined guy. And no matter from what I eat, I really pay attention to what I eat and how I, exercise physically. And then when you're a dad, you try to show your kids, leading by example, right? They see me work out, they see me eat well, and hopefully that's a good influence on my kids.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I just started CrossFit with my 17-year-old son this week. Actually, we're going together, which is fun for him to see his old man.
It's awesome.
Sweat and die a little bit, but to your point, it's like setting the example, setting the tone.
Yeah.
What was the biggest transition for you from high school to college, and then same question from college to the NFL?
It was obviously a bigger transition from college to the NFL, right? The speed of the game is just so much faster in the NFL. And, coming from the Ivy League, 1AA, look, there's some great athletes in the Ivy League, but it's a whole different level. So I think, and then the league is a lot more sophisticated, especially recently. The NFL has become a lot more sophisticated with technology. Back in the day, we're reading printouts of like the coverages and fronts and all that stuff, and now they have iPads and stuff. And so I think the transition for me was really adjusting to the speed of the game, and then adjusting to you really have to improve your football IQ big time. And you see the guys that do well and survive and thrive, and those are the players, specifically quarterbacks and skill positions. You really have to have an incredible football IQ. And I think the thing that really helped me, Matt, honestly, is being a quarterback in college. I knew how to study game film, and I knew what everybody was doing on offense. I can read fronts on defense. I can read coverages on defenses. And as a fullback, you have to know what the linemen are doing. You have to know the blocking schemes, but you also have to, if you're going out for a pass, you need to read coverages and all that stuff. So I think for me, the transition was really obviously the biggest, going from college to the NFL, and especially the coming from 1AA, but it's a whole nother world. And I got to the NFL my rookie year. I'm like, man, these guys are like trying to block Bruce Smith and Reggie White. Like, the physics are not in my favor. So I gotta know what I'm doing, one, and two, I gotta, focus on technique and do my job of just trying to get in the way and block those guys. And so, yeah, it was quite the transition. And then once you get there, you're like, it's all confidence, Matt, as you know. It's like, you got to really believe you belong there and you deserve to be there. And I look at some of these athletes and one, some of these guys that come from really big schools, and when you come to the NFL, everybody's great, right? And you got to play special teams. If you want to survive, chances are a lot of these players have to play special teams. They're like, oh, I've never played special teams. I'm, starting linebacker for Miami. It's like, well, if you want to survive, it's the more you can do, and you got to buy your time. And it's a league of opportunity, right? You're going to get your shot. And when you get your shot to become a starter, or somebody gets hurt in front of you, you got to maximize that opportunity and be prepared.
Where does confidence come from? Like, how would you answer, like, if I'm a high school collegiate athlete, whatever, pro athlete, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, I'm struggling a little bit, right? Or maybe I have ups, maybe I have downs. How do I build confidence in myself? What are some of the keys for you?
In my opinion, preparation gives confidence. When you're prepared mentally and physically, you should be confident. And if you know your playbook inside and out, you can run 100 miles an hour. You can go full speed. And when guys don't know what they're doing, generally they're not going full speed. And that's what, when problems happen or mistakes happen. So I think, in short, being prepared really enables you to be confident. And the more you prepare physically and mentally, the better position you're going to be in.
I don't know what your opinion is on this, because obviously you got young kids now, stuff like that. You work with, you obviously running a company, but you're coming across talking to athletes all the time, and just you have that experience. And do we need to start teaching kids like as early as possible to start looking at film and breaking it down? And we're talking hockey, baseball, football, like every sport is. I mean, should we be starting like in high school to teach these kids whether you're a quarterback or not, or whether you're the starting center in hockey or not, or whatever? Like, is that the time to start teaching these kids, like, this is the way to break down film, to start knowing where you were, where you should be, like looking at the opponent? Like, when should that start in your mind?
Yeah, it's scary to think about, honestly. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the more you can focus on your whatever sport it is, IQ, the better you're going to be prepared. And like I said, the games in general, whether it's basketball, baseball. I mean, you look at the torpedo bat that just came out, right?
Yes.
Certainly the NFL, which I'm most familiar with, the game is becoming more and more sophisticated with technology. And so, coverages are getting more and more complex. They're designing, disguising coverages. Offenses are becoming a lot more creative. And I think, within reason, the quicker young athletes can learn and improve their football IQ, the better their position they're going to be in, for sure.
It was interesting. A couple of years ago, we did a event here in Denver, Chris, where we had a number of different like athletes come speak and business leaders, things like that. And Rod Smith from the Broncos came and talked, and he said something really interesting. I'm curious your opinion on this. And he's got a fascinating story, right? Came out of nowhere, and
incredible.
Now he's leading receiver in Broncos history, all that sort of stuff, right? So, but he said something interesting around watching film. And he said every Monday morning, let's say, right? So assume the game is on Sunday, but every Monday morning he came in and they had to watch film, and he was scared to death he was going to be released every Monday morning.
Yep.
And it was an interesting perspective, because he talked about how when we look at film, it can be a scary thing, right? So in his mind was like, they're going to find something wrong and then be like, this guy doesn't cut it. He doesn't belong. See you later, right? Through his entire career. And he said it was a motivator for him because he wanted to like perfect it, right? And when they looked at the film, they're like, man, I can't find anything wrong. So this guy's got to stay in the league, all that sort of stuff. But it's interesting when you look at it, right? The film can be super scary or it doesn't have to be. What was your thought when you were watching film of yourself, right? Because we're talking about studying like the coverages, things like that. But looking at yourself, did you have that same kind of, I don't know, nervousness that they were going to see something, or did you look at it differently, or how did you interpret that? Because it's tough, like watching yourself sometimes.
Yeah. It was the old saying back then, the eye in the sky doesn't lie, right? So your practices are being filmed and your games are obviously being filmed. And look, I mean, some guys would be paranoid. They'd be like, oh, shoot, that's going to look bad on film on Monday morning, when they're in the middle of the game. But yeah, I think it's having a realistic approach, and it's look, you're going to make mistakes, right? Those guys are making a living as well. And there's incredible athletes on both sides of the ball. Having a growth mindset and trying to get better every day. And certainly, like I said, you're going to make mistakes, but you got to learn from those mistakes and not repeat those mistakes. And so, a guy like Rod had an incredible career and similar to me, I wasn't a highly drafted guy, and I had to have a chip on my shoulder every day, come in and try to get better every day and try to survive every day. And again, you're going to make mistakes, and some plays aren't going to look good on film, whether you're trying to block a 260-pound middle linebacker that's, trying to get to the quarterback. There's going to be some battles you lose, and you have to be realistic about it. But certainly, like everything in life, you gotta try to win a lot more battles than you lose, and that's the key. And but certainly, like I said earlier, being prepared, knowing, studying film, studying the tendencies of these defenders that you're going against is critical, and really, sets you up for success. And again, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to have bad plays, you might get out physical on some plays. Certainly don't try to ever, but those things happen. You have to take a realistic approach, and hopefully you have good coaches that are realistic as well. And I remember certain times in my career where the interesting thing about the NFL is I had some coaches that never played running back in their whole life. They're D2 or D3, defensive players, safeties, corners, and my statement would be like, look, you can draw this up on paper however you want. And you want me to put my helmet in between the 5 and the 6 or on the outside of the 6. But again, those guys are fast and strong, and they're making a living too. My job is to block them. And of course, I want my footwork to be perfection. I want my hat or my helmet to be in a certain position. And that's the goal. But sometimes that doesn't happen, right? And you have to be realistic about that and know that your job is to block these guys. Your job is to give the tailback, and in my case, as a fullback, your job is to give the tailback some room to run. And obviously, ideally, there's certain runs where you got to try to get outside leverage to get them outside, or inside leverage, et cetera. But yeah, it's an interesting process, but I think having a realistic approach and having a growth mindset, just like business, right? You're trying to get better every day and trying to learn every day. There's so much great access to information out there in business right now, and I talk about all the time. But guys like Rod Smith, he just had it, man. He had an incredible work ethic. He was obviously an extremely talented guy, good dude too. I've gotten to know him a little bit historically, and he just wanted to be great, and he did the things that it took to be great. And sometimes you look at historically or statistically, some of these guys are Tom Brady, for example, right? He just had a chip on his shoulder, and he became great because he worked at it relentlessly, and just knew that if he was going to be great, now one of the best of all time, if not the best, he's got to put in the work and have confidence and certainly have a chip on his shoulder every day when he walks in that building or in that stadium.
Absolutely. But I think too that, overcoming that fear of like looking at film and doing some of that stuff, right? Especially of yourself, that boosts confidence to your point, right? If you're willing to look at, we try to have our kids like watch hockey film, right? So my son now comes home, watches a hockey film of the game. And, he made a comment the other night, actually, he goes to our youngest daughter, who's 13, just saying like, because she hesitates a little bit, right, to watch some of this stuff. And I get it. But we're, trying to teach her and plant the seeds and be the example. And he said, it's actually kind of fun to watch yourself like do good things. And then I kind of chirped in, of course, as I have to as a father, but to say, well, it's also like you've learned some interesting things about yourself too, right? Of like what to improve. And he's like, yeah. And I remember in particular, Chris, one time he came home and he's playing center and he stopped playing center, went to right wing and kind of switched positions because they had a couple centers on the line. And I'm like, why'd you stop? He goes, my face-off percentage was terrible. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, it was horrible. I lost every face-off. So I pulled up the film and we literally went through each face-off and I'm like, you're 6 out of 7 winning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look. So whether it's not just to prove like, oh, you're doing well, but it's also to be like, let's be realistic to your point and then figure out like, okay, what's the truth? And then what do we need to fix, if anything? Or maybe it's you're 6 out of 7. So how, like, that's amazing. You should play more center. So
Absolutely.
It's really interesting.
Good lessons. Yeah. I think the thing that's been fun for me, Matt, is, again, I was lucky enough to be a good natural athlete. My 10-year-old son is similar. He's a really good natural athlete. He's luckily like really fast and moves quick but he also works at it relentlessly. And the thing that I've been trying to focus on is, as you know, parents are nuts sometimes in youth sports, and they put a lot of pressure on their kids, or they're trying to live vicariously through their kids, and that's not healthy. And especially, my son Jack, who's his old man, was an athlete, and I certainly don't want to put added pressure on him. And so, but teaching these kids about the things that I was never taught as a kid, like being a leader. Like no one taught me when I was a little kid how to be a leader. And there's a lot of ways to be a leader, right? You don't have to necessarily be a vocal leader. You can lead by example, be a great teammate, pick your teammates up when they make mistakes, and celebrate the wins or the plays, and they have good plays, et cetera. But watching that and seeing my kid instill those things naturally or authentically has been fun for me. It's not necessarily about the X's and O's, and we talk about that, of course, but just teaching these kids about, leadership and teamwork and accountability and coming to practice every day and trying to get better and not messing around. And look, at the end of the day, it's fun, right? Like kids are 10, it's supposed to be fun. Of course you want to win, and these kids want to win, but teaching them things, at least in my example, teaching my kids how to be leaders, has been fun. And that's what it's all about, right? Hopefully they have good coaches that are going to have influences on them and teaching them the game and teaching them to love the game. And hopefully they love the game more at the end of the season than from the beginning of the season. But that's been the funnest thing for me, honestly, is to teach my sons in particular and some of their friends that they play with the things that I wasn't taught as a kid. And that's been cool for me.
Yes. When if you agree with this or not, but I'm like, we look at the success principles or the secrets to success as as you market different things, right? The secrets to success. I'm like, really, like we know what they are. It's relatively simple. It's not easy, but it's simple, right? As far as like preparation and like celebrating with your team and like all these different things. But at the harder parts of the discipline side of it, right? Of putting in the work every day, and then you can shift expectations. Yeah,
I'm a big fan of stoicism, right? Like I live by that, and I try to teach my kids that in a healthy way too. Like you worry about what you control. You control your effort and your attitude and your energy and your preparation, and if you do that, then most times you're going to be successful, right? And we see kids, and it's hard, right? Kids are 10, or my youngest is 6 years old, and he plays flag football, and it's a little bit controlled chaos. But they have to have fun, but also, you have to come there with energy. You got to come there, be coachable. That's another point. Like, nobody taught me as a young age how important it is to be coachable and be open to constructive criticism. And I've had a lot of coaches in my life, as you know, and some of the coaches in the NFL were old school, like hard ass coaches. And that's changed, I think, a little bit, obviously, as time goes on. But some people don't respond to that. Some people don't respond to getting in your face and screaming at you. And I have so many examples of that. But I think it's important as a leader and as a coach to understand each individual's, kind of triggers on what makes them perform their best, and not necessarily screaming at somebody. Rookie receiver in the huddle is going to produce the best results, right? So it's understanding from a psychological perspective what it takes to get the most out of each individual player. And that could be the kids too. Like some kids don't like being screamed at. You got to know that as a coach and as a parent. And, but also you need to hold them accountable, but have more of a kind of civilized conversation with them as opposed to screaming at or yelling at them and all that stuff. Yeah.
That's so good. This is such, I love how you brought this up because I think it's such call it the art of influence or whatever you want to call it, right? But it's all of us, right? Including coaches, players, whatever. It's like the more you understand how to push the people's buttons at the right time, and people hear that and they're like, push a button. It's like I'm trying to piss somebody off. It's like, no. You're trying to influence them and trying to get them to take an action of some sort, right? Or correct an action. And you have to learn which buttons to push and when to push them and how to push them. Yep. And to your point, some kids love yelling. Yeah. But a lot of kids don't.
Yep.
And so are you taking the time to like figure that out?
Yeah.
Who's one of the best coaches you've had, and like how did they approach you as far as like what you needed to work on?
It's funny. I hate to admit this, because I was very grateful for my time in the NFL. Believe me, I lived the dream for a long time, and I'm incredibly grateful. I would say, I didn't have the greatest leaders, in my opinion, as head coaches. Some of the best coaches I had in the NFL were either my position coaches or my special teams coaches. And, two in particular, Hank Coolman when I was in Indy and Scotty O'Brien when I was in Carolina. They were just awesome coaches, man. They just, one, I think they appreciated what I brought to the table and the value I brought to the table. They instilled confidence in me. And, but also they held me accountable and they provided great, feedback. And they did so in a very healthy way. And to your point, they knew how to push my buttons. They knew how to get the most out of me. And that's important. And I talk about this quite a bit on other shows, but like the natural progression in the NFL is to go from a defensive coordinator or offensive coordinator to head coach. And just because you're a great defensive coordinator can call a great defensive game doesn't mean you can be a great leader and manage the team and manage the coaches and manage the ownership group and manage the media, and I think we've seen that historically throughout the league. And I think it's become, a bit different. And what I also think is really important is really setting the culture. I think setting the culture from the top down is critical. And I looked at my career and all the various teams I played for, and where we had the most success is where we had the best cultures. And I think I give you a real world example, like the Raiders, hiring Pete Carroll, I thought was an epic move because he's going to reset that culture.
Yes.
Obviously, Tom Brady coming in is going to bring an energy and an attitude to the organization. I'm really excited about that. And you look at some of the other teams that just don't have the greatest cultures, the chance of success is smaller, in my opinion.
Yes. That's so very true. Yeah. Have you read Pete's book, Win Forever?
Yeah.
I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
It's an interesting glimpse into, I actually use it as examples when I'm talking to coaches of his philosophy around coaching and how he sits with coaches and goes through it and players. And to your point, it's like a culture. These are the expectations. So you kind of get on the bus or don't, or, I'm mixing different leaders now with their sayings, but it's really true.
Yeah. I mean, a different approach is, Bill Belichick back in the day, right? He was kind of an old school hard ass, at least from what I've heard. And, but he also built an incredible system and a culture of like, look, this is the way it is. We're winners. We're going to establish a winning culture. And you saw how he got, older veteran players to come in at the end of their careers, Randy Moss, Junior Seau, all these guys. And they bought in, right? Like I played with Randy and one of the most talented guys I've ever played with in my life, right? I wouldn't say he took practice, overly serious when I was over in Oakland, but I'm sure he changed his ways in New England because if you want to be there, you got to buy in. And I think Bill, at least from what I hear and what some of my friends on the team told me, he just did that really well, man. The guys bought in and they had a winning culture. They were going to practice hard. They're probably going to wear, they changed the rules now where you can't wear full pads as much as we did back in the day. I mean, back when I played, we were wearing full pads twice a day in training camp. And you knew you were going to grind and you knew you were going to, it's going to be a physically demanding environment and practice every day, but they win, man. And if you win, it's not as hard. And and you buy in. You're like, look, this is the process. I understand the process. He makes it completely clear.
Yes.
And I think the other thing reflecting my career, Matt, is I think it's the job of a coach or a leader to really make sure your players understand their roles and responsibilities and what you expect out of them, and then constantly provide feedback. And I think some of that was lacking from teams that I've seen. And
Yes.
I think the best coaches really get the most out of their players because they understand their roles and responsibilities. And like I said earlier, again, it's a game of opportunity, right? And if you're the backup quarterback, you need to be ready. You need to prepare like you're a starter because you're one play away from getting in the game, and that can change your whole life. So if you're not prepared, it's not a good thing.
It's very true. Did the best coaches you had? I think I know your answer on this one. I think sometimes, just like a person who gets to the NFL, the first comment out of people's minds is like, "Oh, they're like a natural athlete, right?" Or like, "Look at the talent they have." And
Yeah.
I think coaches too that elevate to certain levels. You look at some coaches, you're like, "Man, they just have a gift."
Yeah.
And I always sit there and say, well, yes, there's an absolute like talent or gift maybe they were born with. But it's back to like, I don't think you're appreciating the work that went into make that happen as a coach or a player. Do you agree, disagree? I know from an athlete, you agree with that, but from a coach perspective, same thing in your mind?
Yeah. I mean, I look at some of the coach, like my high school coach, Kevin Driscoll. I had him in high school, and he was an awesome coach, man, because he knew the game, but he also knew what each individual player brought to the table. And I played everything in high school. I was a kicker, the punter. I punted, I tore my groin, and I ended up punting lefty for the rest of the season because he was confident that I could get it done. I was going to find a way to get it done. He really believed in me and really instilled a lot of confidence in me. I think that made a profound impact in my career and gave me a lot of confidence going into college. And then my coach in college, Carm Koza, was the same way. And, I caught him at the end of his career, towards the tail end. I think he retired a year after I left. But he was the same guy. He really believed in me. That's important as an athlete. Like, I don't care how good you are, how much self-confidence you have. You want that affirmation from your coach that he's gonna believe in you. And in turn, you're gonna run through a wall for that guy or girl, whoever the coach is. And so, I think it's important. I think coaches need to understand, especially in the NFL, everybody's great, right? Everybody was the man in college, wherever they went. And, but in order to be great, it's a business too. And you really need to work together on getting the most output from your players. And again, no matter if you're a Hall of Fame player, like, people want affirmation. They want, confirmation that, what they're bringing to the table is good and the value they're providing is good. And so, I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a study. It's like the study of people, right? It's just like you're studying film. You've got to understand and put the time in, ask the right questions. I think, did you ever have a coach ask you like how best do I push your button kind of thing? And maybe they said, obviously asked it different.
I wish they did. I try to do that. I do that in business. It's communication is so important, man. And I won't name any names, but I've had some head coaches that just weren't the greatest communicators. And I'm just like, what are we doing, man? We're pros. Like, we're on the same team. Like,
yes,
we're trying to win, and we don't have to go out and drink beers together, obviously, but like, we got to communicate. Like, communication is essential, no matter if you're in sports or in business. And I try to do that as a leader in the businesses that I've run, and certainly at Fat Ed. Like, it's providing an environment where you're empowering people to be great. And sometimes you have to pick up the phone and call them when you think they made a mistake or they didn't execute the way they were supposed to. And if you do that, you communicate in a healthy way, I think the chances are that girl or guy is not going to make the same mistake again. And that's important.
Yes.
I didn't have a lot of coaches in my career that sat me down and say, hey, look, this is your position on the team, and here's what we expect out of you. And we want you to get to this point in your career and your ability. I wish they did, and I was easy. I like to think I'm easy where, I understood my role, and the chips were just stacked against me on every day, right? I was an undrafted free agent and went to Yale, which is not a football powerhouse. And I think honestly, my first couple of years, that's looked at, in a negative light. Like, you didn't go to Florida State, or you didn't go to Miami, or you didn't go to Stanford, like you went to Yale, like, and how do you counter that by showing them, like, look, I belong. I'm going to knock you in the mouth. I'm going to hit you underneath the chin strap, and I'm going to come to fight every day and go to work every day and grind. And also, I'm going to be the guy that's in the training room at 6 a.m. I'm going to be watching film till 9 o'clock at night. And those are the things you got to do. And look, I look back at my career. Everybody has regrets, but I can sleep at night knowing that I tried to be a good pro every year, every day. Try to be a good teammate every year, every day, or every year, and that's all you can do. And again, it's especially as a fullback, it's all determined on what system you're in or how they're used to. And again, if you're not going to get a lot of time as a fullback, you better be a great special team player. And I understood that from a very young age.
That's one thing I hear in a lot of these interviews too, is understanding your role and how to like thrive in your role.
Yeah.
And it's all that preparation and buying in and understanding that, and like doing the daily stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah. Then you guys got Marshall Faulk. I mean, I played with Marshall Faulk in Indianapolis and St. Louis. Probably the smartest football player I've ever played with. Obviously extremely talented. Marshall was like a coach on the field. I mean, he was literally, his football IQ was through the roof, and he was so talented. He could have played receiver, probably could have played defensive back, So playing with guys like that and having those guys, influence you and seeing how he works and seeing how he studies and see how he grinds. And then again, all people in the NFL have natural ability, right? It's just you can't rely on your God-given ability when you get to the NFL. You gotta improve your football IQ, and you gotta grind in the weight room, get bigger, stronger, faster. And
yes,
if you look at the evolution of this league, guys are, it's cliche, but they're bigger, stronger, and faster. It's nuts.
Yes.
There's rule changes, and back in the day, I was running down like a kamikaze and blowing up wedges and getting concussed and all that. Now they try to protect the players, but I think it's a combination of just coaches, really empowering people and making sure they understand their role and responsibility, and the players taking that and being comfortable with that. But also, look, you come in, you're a backup. Everyone wants to be a starter, right? So you got to do your job and prepare like a starter, whether you're the backup guard or whether you're the backup quarterback or you're the backup safety. Like, you're literally one play away.
Yes.
And if you don't maximize that opportunity, it's not good.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes too, like experiences in business and sports too, but I feel like sometimes there's this pressure if a coach talks to a player like that, they owe them something, that they have to find a starting spot for them, they have to find. And I'm like, no, you don't owe them you're trying to grow and help develop them. You don't have to guarantee like, well, next game, we'll try to get you in. Like, you don't have to say that. You can say like, we need to improve, and when we'll fit you in, I don't know yet.
Yeah.
But you got to do this, and this to keep working, right? Or start working on this. Yeah,
I see that in youth sports too, Matt. It's youth sports are a little different. Again, they're young kids, and the object is to have fun, but also you got to want to get better, right? And I come from a bottom line world, right? If you don't produce, you're gone, And there's always younger, less expensive guys that were coming in trying to take my job, and that's been cool of teaching my kids and some of their teammates, like, look, you gotta perform, and again, you gotta have fun doing it, but like, you gotta somewhat take it serious and do the things to prepare and have a good attitude. And again, everybody's gonna make mistakes, everybody's gonna make errors, everybody's gonna drop a ball, but it's one play at a time. You gotta have a short memory and do what it takes to be the best player you can be. That's it.
Yes, absolutely. 2 last questions. These will be quick. Well, one will be quick. who's the toughest person you've ever had to block and why?
Oh man, I blocked a lot of tough dudes in my career. Levon Kirkland as a middle linebacker, in the playoffs and my rookie year was a battle. The game has changed, right? Linebackers when I was playing were big, and now they're smaller because the offenses have changed, and you got to cover
Speed, yep.
Running backs out of the backfield and tight ends out of the backfield. But man, I mean, Levon Kirkland. I remember going against Quentin Coriat my first couple of years in Indy. He was a linebacker. He was built like a Greek god from Texas A&M, and that guy was tough, man. Rodney Harrison was a tough guy. Bruce Smith, just so many guys. I think Ray Lewis. Ray Lewis was an incredible player. I wouldn't say he was, I'm sure he would admit he's not a banger, not coming downhill and banging fullbacks. So he was just, they had these big offensive linemen, Sam Adams and Saragusa, and these guys that were, not getting up to the second level. The offensive line weren't getting up to the second level, so he's running east-west. Urlacher was an incredible player, a tremendous amount of respect for him. He was a safety in college.
Wow.
But yeah, I played against a lot of great guys, a lot of physical players. Whether that's DNs or linebackers or safeties, et cetera.
So good, but you got to have the confidence and go after them either way. Study, understand them, try to learn their tendencies, and try to win the battle.
Try to win more than you lose.
Yes, try to win more than you lose. I love that. Yeah. Well, I know we're right at time, and you want to be aware of that. But obviously, you've done with football now, running Fathead. But if people want to find you, connect with you, buy some Fathead stuff. We were talking before, man. I mean, Fathead name when I was growing up was a massive thing. It's
bringing it back.
Bringing it back, man. But give a kind of brief overview of kind of what you're up to now and Fathead and where people can connect with you.
Yeah, so we're on fathead.com. We have an incredible business with all the licenses and sports and entertainment. We have an incredible custom side of our business. Pretty active on social on Fathead. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, as you know. Yeah, I mean, our job is to bring joy to people's faces and celebrate fandom and bring fans closer to their heroes. And it's a really fun business. We got a great team. We have incredible growth plans, and we're going big at Fathead. So we're super excited.
So good. We've had a Nathan McKinnon one at our house.
Nice.
Up on the wall. And it's, just in my mind, iconic brand, right? That has been around a long time and doing amazing things. And I need to have a side conversation with you too about getting some custom stuff done for us. But
we're making a big impact in youth sports. Youth sports is a big focus of ours, especially on the custom side of the business. And so, taking a philanthropic route as well. We want to be a mission-driven business. We've been participating in the LA fire relief, as you know, and
yes,
it's a special company. I'm very grateful to be in this position, and we got some great teammates, and we have an incredible opportunity. And now it's all about execution and focus, and wake up every day psyched, man. It's been fun for me to be back in sports again, right? Leverage these relationships I've built over the last 25, 30 years, and we're having a good time. But we're focused on growth. We're expanding distribution. I was thinking about global expansion, and so it's great, man. We're having a lot of fun.
I love it. And we'll put links, everyone, to Fathead, all the social media sites, so you can connect with Chris, with the company, all that sort of stuff. But Chris, I can't stay on for a minute after I stop recording, but I just can't thank you enough for being here. Just awesome.
It's been a pleasure, man. Really appreciate it, man. It was a lot of fun.
This is awesome. Well, everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to watch Chris and I. And as I say on all these, right, take one thing that Chris said and just start putting it into action, because action is going to get you where you want to go, and in school and sports and in life and relationships and business. I mean, you name it. It's like we're dropping these little gold nuggets, and all you got to do is pick one up and run with it. So please share this with your family, friends, with your team, with anyone in your circle, and we'll see you on the next Masters of the Game interview. Thanks, everybody.